But who's are the pretenders? Who are the real Super Bowl contenders? John Clayton from the Washington Post, great article today chronicling the 5 teams that he likes, plus a couple of notes that we'll get into. Let's start there, John. And you wrote about the NFC East and how bad it is. They lose Dak Prescott. The Eagles have been dreadful. The Giants still haven't won. Washington's changed its quarterback already. Does any team in there have a shot to pull away, or is this going to be just a catastrophic mess all season long?
Well, here's going to be funny is that the way it's going right now, because a lot of the NFC Super Bowl contenders are not showing like they're contenders. I mean, it just drops. And what's happening is that you've got the NFC East fueling, the NFC West and the AFC North with wins because they play those 2 divisions with 4 games. And right now, in those non-interconference games or non-division games, the Giants and all the teams in the East haven't won a single game. What are they, like 0-11? And so all they're doing is pumping things up and giving higher seeds to the teams in those 2 divisions. But here's the weird part. As weird as it is, I wouldn't be surprised that the Dallas Cowboys would be the first team in football to clinch the playoffs. And the reason I say that is that the Cowboys get to play in the NFC East, right? And unless the Eagles, it could be the Eagles too. But if the Cowboys or Eagles go 5-1 or 6-0 in the division, the division is probably going to be a 6-win, 7-win division. So it's like if all the teams, like 2 or 3 of the teams are down there at 4 wins at the beginning of December, which very well could happen, what you're looking at is that, the Cowboys could get to 6 or 7 and clinch, or the Eagles could get to 6 or 7 and clinch.
That's a good point. Yeah, that one of them could win the division, pull away from the others, and basically clinch that division because Washington and New York, you would imagine, will not be involved here. Maybe Philly either. I mean, we saw Philly last week. I mean, 29 points. The offense was okay. Wentz had a decent game. They found this kid Fulgham out of nowhere, but that defense has been a problem. I mean, is this who they are? Is this who the Eagles are? Is it a bad football team?
Well, it's an injured football team, and that kind of makes it a bad football team. I think you have to look at it that way. And again, you're seeing so many things like that creeping up because, I counted up, stupid me, I keep track of every missed start and trying to keep up on who starts, and so I don't get too far off on that. And, missed starts are up 26% compared to last year. 26%, think about that, because there's now close to 500 missed starts. That's 100 a week. And so what you're looking at is that you've got so many guys right now. I mean, the entire offensive line pretty much is on the injured reserve list. I was happy that Lane Johnson, is not going to need surgery, but he hasn't been the same since that ankle injury. And so you've got the bad offensive line right now because of injuries. I mean, the receivers, it's like, okay, so which unknown is the best wide receiver help? Is it Greg Ward or is it Fulgham? So you have that. And then, there's been issues on the defensive side of the ball. But, at 1-3-1, it's not a strong Eagle team. And I think you can see that Carson Wentz, though overly criticized, is affected by it.
You mentioned the Eagles being injured, which ties perfectly with something you wrote about with the 2020 wide receiver class. You mentioned Ruggs, Judy, Lamb, Jefferson, Jalen Reagor. If healthy, is he talented enough to be in that type of class as well?
Oh, I think he can, sure. No question. Because, again, I mean, this was a great draft for wide receivers, and it's turning out even better and better. And, I mean, you see it. I mean, what was it? 25 receivers drafted, more than I think any other year. You had so many that went in the first 3-4 rounds. This was a great draft. I know Daniel Jeremiah, the NFL Network, says that he went into the offseason looking at the draft at wide receiver, and he thought this could be the best. And now you look at what you see on the field, it looks even better. I mean, because Justin Jefferson's come on and helped out Kirk Cousins on that bad Minnesota Viking team. He's done well. I mean, you can see the top 3 were the top 3. I mean, whether you like, Jeff Judy or whether you like CeeDee Lamb or whether you like Henry Ruggs, they're all good. But the other, of course, Reagor's going to fit into that group too. But unfortunately, he's hurt.
Yeah, well, I guess the fear is that they all can't be good. Somebody's got to be the bust of the group. You hope it's not him.
Yeah, but I don't think it will be. I mean, again, the injuries play a big role. I mean, you saw good things out of Michael Pittman in Indianapolis. And unfortunately, he's on the injured reserve list. Again, we've got more injuries right now than we've ever had in any season in NFL history. and everybody has to deal with it. But you don't want to be the teams like Philly and San Francisco and the Los Angeles Chargers and the Dallas Cowboys.
John Clayton from the Washington Post. Teams that are legitimate Super Bowl contenders right now. Kansas City lost the other night, but they're still the favorite?
Yeah, I think so, because, again, they have Patrick Mahomes. And even as bad as it was with the defensive performance of the Kansas City Chiefs with Derek Carr just carving him up and putting 40 points on the board, he's still Patrick Mahomes has the ability to make that last drive to either get the tie or get the win. I mean, he's done it so many times. I mean, he had a 6-game stretch before a week ago before that he was able to do it. And you can see that he can be down 2 scores and he can still get you there. I mean, they just got to tighten some things up on defense. But again, you look league-wide, tell me the teams that are tightening up on defense. I mean, you get good defensive numbers when you play a team with a young or bad quarterback or a young or bad offense, but everybody else, I mean, from Green Bay to New Orleans to Seattle, I mean, you look at all those numbers, and they're all high.
John, I know you're out there in Seattle. 710 ESPN is where you can hear John Clayton on the radio, and 5-0, but, man, you mentioned defense. Can they make it deep with that defense, or is that just the way the league is?
That's the way the league is. I mean, because, again, you go around, because I know I get constables on this, and it's like, oh, you can't sustain this. You can't sustain this. And it's like, well, when you go back, and, again, any year prior to this, you almost throw away because it doesn't count compared to this year. But, Indy went to a Super Bowl with Peyton Manning at a defense that did it poorly. New Orleans did that. I mean, it's rare, but it does happen. This year, it's happening everywhere because, you can see with the lack of holding penalties, teams stay in rhythm on offense and are able to, not have to face, 2nd and 20s and all that. In fact, I just went through, because I always keep track of the holding penalties, and I think there was only like about 28 or 29 this past week. I mean, the numbers just stay so low that you can keep pace on offense. Not having the crowd noise for visiting teams has helped offenses not have to get false starts and make mistakes like that. So you throw all that stuff together, and it's all working out for offenses. And so, in a year that people always keep saying you win championships on defense, that's never really happened for the most part in the last 2 decades. I mean, you win with quarterbacks, and the more you can give the quarterbacks a chance to get into a rhythm, the better it is.
How legit is this Pittsburgh Steelers team? They went 8-8 last year. They had the wonky quarterback situation. You add Big Ben, this defense, it stops the run. It has a lot of versatility when it comes to that 3-4. It brings a ton of blitzes. How legit are they?
Very legit, because it's funny because in Pittsburgh, and of course having covered the Steelers at the beginning of my career and growing up in Pittsburgh, you hear all the criticism, and the criticism is, well, they can't get to 30 points because you go back 2 years ago, they vowed to be a 30-point offense, and then Ben gets the elbow problems. It gets halfway through the 2nd game of the season last year. He's out for the year, but he's back. He's playing at a high level. They've got a top 5 defense. And so even though they gave up points and yards to the Philadelphia Eagles, I think they're legit. And they face more young quarterbacks than just about any team in football. So I look at them as being an 11 or 12 win team. And we'll get to find out how good they are in these next couple of weeks when they play Cleveland and Pittsburgh. But I'd say right now that the top 3 teams that are Super Bowl contenders in the AFC, Kansas City, Pittsburgh, or Baltimore.
Yep, and then you mentioned Seattle. I guess the other contender, you got to throw Green Bay in there, right?
100%, yeah. Because again, the Packers have a quarterback right now. He may not be as hot as Russell Wilson, but he's pretty hot. I mean, and in fact, he's gone through 5 games. He's putting up 38 points a game. And he's doing it pretty much without receivers. Because remember, he's done the last couple games without Devontae Adams. The unknown names in the rest of their receiving core. They even lost one in Alan Lazard, and so it's like you hardly know who these receivers are. But he does, and he gets the ball to them, and he's just smoking right now.
Yep, it's fun at the top, and then if those are your 5, what's that next group or next team or 2 that are right there? Because it seems like it's pretty. I mean, everybody loves Kansas City, but it's wide open after that.
Yeah, the next 3, I think you have to put the Buffalo Bills up there. And again, we'll get the full ramifications of whether the Bills are there or not just tonight in the game against Tennessee, and then Sunday when they play the Kansas City Chiefs. If they go 1-1 in those 2 games, they're legit. And then you have to pick one of the 2 teams, if not both teams, in the NFC South, whether it's Tampa Bay or New Orleans. because, again, they've had struggles with the quarterback position for both, but they have quarterbacks who have been there, been to Super Bowls. And you saw last night, even though he had the slow start, that Drew Brees, whether he's down 17 points or not, can still bring a team back and try to win a football game.
John Clayton's with us, the Washington Post. And, John, I know, again, you're out there in Seattle, so you get to see what linebacker play is like. How valuable is linebacker? Like, the Eagles just don't value the linebacker position at all. They have the least resources in that position. Wagner, KJ Wright. How important is the linebacker position in today's game?
So you're telling me just because the long snapper makes more than any of the linebackers on the team that's a bad thing, that they're not committing to the linebacking group? It's extremely important, particularly even more so now with the way that offenses are, because pre-snap motion on running plays is at all-time high. It's never been that way. And so, and you see the way that people have copied both Sean McVay and copied what's going on with Kyle Shanahan, and Doug Peterson has even copied some of that stuff too. I mean, you're trying to get wider spreads on some of these outside zone runs to try to make sure with the pre-snap motion and everything else that you put the pressure on the linebackers to be able to get there. And so, now what you need to do on a defense is that you need good, quick, fast linebackers, and you also need that positionalist player that Matt Rule always talks about, that safety, box safety, who can play slot receiver, linebacker. They can play, at the free safety position, but somebody that could just chase these guys down. Because if you can't get to the quarterback who's rolling out, if you can't get to the running back, you're giving up big plays. So
putting Nate Geary on Chase Claypool, not a good idea?
Chase Claypool was, when I was sitting there in the draft and they took him, and I said, Steelers did it again, because they are as good in any team in the last 2 decades at finding wide receivers. And Claypool, you could see it from the first time he was out there. He's a big receiver. To me, and of course, I hate to bring this up in South Jersey, but it's like, Whitehead, I don't think you can put him ahead of DK Metcalf. Because DK Metcalf in his first 21 games, and Metcalf ended up being, with his trade up by Seattle, the 64th player taken in the draft right at the end of the second round. But his numbers right now have exceeded guys in 21 games. And you've heard of these guys before. Calvin Johnson, because the 80 catches that Calvin's had, Metcalf, but, over 100 yards more, 1,378 yards. He's caught more than T.O., Terrell Owens. He's done better in a start in 21 games than Calvin Johnson, and he's also done better than Julio Jones. And so the only one that can top him is some guy named Randy Moss, who had 90 catches and 20 touchdowns in his first 21 games.
Thanks a lot, John. That really hurt all of our feelings.
I know. It's like,
oh, man, that DK Metcalf.
But you got Greg Ward and you got Fulgham.
Fulgham's not bad so far. We're liking what we're seeing out of Fulgham.
Bad.
Yeah, 152 yards last week, but that DK Metcalf would look pretty good in midnight green. You can have J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. He's John Clayton from the Washington Post, and he was kind enough to join us right here on the Sports Bash Boardwalk Honda Hotline. John, thanks so much, man.
Okay, thanks.